Good morning, family and friends. Psalms 139:16. As we seek to find our purpose, what is it that God would have us to do? We found, as an illustration, the story of Jacob. And it speaks to the fact that to find our purpose, God gives us dreams that He instills within us. And a part of that purpose and dreams comes a process. And so there's power to be found in the process of finding your purpose that should be given birth via the dreams that God gives us. When we dream, there will be many who will choose to discourage us because people hate dreamers. You remember the story of Joseph and his brothers with his dream. Right after he began to have his dreams and he shared his dreams, that's when his troubles began. No dreams are happenstance and just occur just by some fluke of nature. But over and over again in the book of Genesis was a phrase that we shared with you yesterday in yesterday's message, but it is one that resonates deeply. And it was the phrase, the Lord was with him. When we dream, when we seek to find God's purpose in the dreams that He gives us, the Lord declares that He will be with us. He said, I will be with you until I have given you those things that I've spoken thereof. And in this process, God informs us that we have to leave the familiar behind. For if the familiar was what was ready and right for us, we would have already determined our process and achieved the dream that God has for us. Leave the familiar behind. Oftentimes, the familiar is toxic, and it is the reason why we have yet to achieve the fullness that God has promised us. The process always involves recognizing that God is always with us. He has never left us, nor has He forsaken us. There's a process to finding our purpose. The process reminds us that God's word speaks to us. If we listen to His leading, we will be able to determine our purpose. The process is designed specifically to cause us to trust God and only God, not our intellect, not our prowess, none of those things, but to trust God in everything. Do you want favor of God? The favor of God comes to us when we give up our own will and we are able to trust only in God, and God is able to trust us. God is able to trust us with the dream that He has given us. When we reach that state, we are able to put our own agendas aside and allow God to trust us with a dream. That dream leads us to the gifting that He has in our lives. When we have favor with God, we find ourselves in the presence of the King. There are people in our lives that we have learned and come to trust. There are those who we have learned not to trust. When you trust someone, you can give them the keys to your car and you have faith that your car will return to you in the same condition of which you gave it to them. There are three nevers that should occur for godly dreamers. We should never use our past as an excuse to stop dreaming. Those who we can't trust will continue to remind us of who and what we used to be. They will remind us of our past failures, our past dreams that had not yet come to fruition. They will remind you of just who you are and that God should not trust you with your dream. But I declare today that a part of finding our purpose and actualizing our dream is to go through the process of understanding that our past does not preclude us from receiving God's purpose in our lives. Don't let it stop you from dreaming. Does not matter what you used to be. They used to have a saying that I'm not what I am or what I should be, but thank God I'm not what I used to be. God is positioning us from our past to achieve the dreams that he has given us. Never allow our dreams to only involve ourselves. If your dream is only about you, then your dream is too small. God gives us purpose so that we are able to be a blessing to the building of his kingdom. The other thing is, no matter how much opposition comes your way, no matter how many times it does not become an actual aspect of your life, no matter how many times you failed at it, never quit on the dream that God has given us. If God has given us the dream, there are going to be some things that we're going to lose along the way. But as much as we lose, we shall gain so much more. Dreams are costly, but well worth it. Because if God said it, then God means it. If God said it, then God is going to bless us exponentially. God will open up the windows of heaven and pours out a blessing that we will not have room to receive. We have to go through the process. Don't be deterred. Never believe that God's dream is restricted to just you. The dream that God gives us should be a blessing to others. The dream is something that's needed by others. So when we fail to act upon the dream that God has given us, then we are not only causing us to have a deficit, but we may be doing spiritual damage to other kingdom seekers. We may cause others to falter and not walk in the faith or the dream that God has given them, because the church is made up of many members. Jacob, in his darkest hour, went through this process. God's ladder. Colossians 2:3 tells us a way up to appropriate his promise is that connection to heaven. The process. God's angels. Hebrews 1:14 reminds us that the angels ministers to those of salvation. His presence is an ability to bring things to pass because God is sovereign. His mere presence causes a catalyst to occur that brings our dreams into fruition. And God keeps his promise during the process. In verse 15, he declares once again, not until I have done what I have promised to do in your life. Brothers and sisters, don't allow the process to deter you from finding your purpose and actualizing your dreams. God is in the process, and his promise is rooted in verse 15. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you I was going to do. Isn't that an amazing promise from God? I will not leave you until I have promised to do what I told you I was going to do. So even in the midst of what we consider to be setbacks and failures, God is with us. Our setback is a setup for God to actualize our dreams for his purpose and his kingdom building. Remember, there's a process to finding our purpose, but you are not alone in the process. May God bless and keep you is our prayer. As always, should you have any questions, please inbox me.